I'll sit next to Sarah.
It was meant to be.
It's amazing.
Got our Bainbridge crew here, right?
We have to keep it in a third color.
We'll tighten up.
We'll try it.
Okay. Then not that much.
We'll try to tighten it up. I don't have to bring my vocals in order to share something to everybody.
Yeah, there are chairs and benches around. If folks are feeling like the ground is not going to be friendly to them for an hour sitting.
Okay, alright. Alright, here we're supposed to be talking about cultural competence. Anybody familiar with what cultural competence is? Cultural competency? What cultural competency is basically the literacy you have of other cultures, race, religions, ethnic groups around you, so that we can all communicate with them properly for we're going to be stuck with each other for 7 days, and there's a lot of importance in people raising their literacy with this, because a lot of people come from a lot of backgrounds where they may not have encountered somebody of a certain, sexual orientation, certain race, or a certain religion. And I've been used to being in circles. I'm sure, I can tell since no one is familiar with cultural competency that just like me, you've probably been in many circles where you felt there was really no need to. You figure everyone knows about oppression, everyone knows about racism, everybody knows about, oppression of sexual orientation, and you never prep people for that, I'm about to tell you a story of a lesson I learned for a training that we was doing in March. I wish my friend Daisy was here because she was in that training with me. We were, usually the crowds I was running with ruckus, younger people, people 30 under, they were kind of hip, I didn't have to worry about somebody actually saying the wrong thing to offend me for being black or someone for being gay or lesbian. Didn't think I had to worry about that. With this particular training, I didn't do the recruiting for the training. Another organization recruited their people and wanted us to conduct this training for them. And now I have people from all kinds of varying backgrounds, and I really didn't catch this. So everybody's doing introductions, and everybody start introducing themselves, and later we start talking about the rules of if someone says something that offends or hurts somebody, what do we do? Or if we have someone that seems to be getting too aggressive, and we have to handle it, what do we do? So people were giving out different suggestions. Then this one guy, he was about 75 years old. He says, I have the solution. I'm like, yeah. He was like, we're going to get a big black guy with a beard, and we're going to put him at the door to make sure that if there's someone offending us, they won't want to come in. The room went quiet. All right, and I was sitting next to him, and I'm like, and I wasn't really offended by what he said, but I was just thinking of the mess he's just caused me with the group now. And now, all the trainers have to figure out how to handle what just happened with this guy. And I'm used to being I call myself the fly in the bowl of cream of wheat. I'm used to being the only black guy in a lot of settings, So I'm used to coming across people who may have who I can tell are good people who aren't trying to offend anybody or hurt anybody. Okay, they just came from a different background and may not know, but a lot of white folk don't know that. So they were being very vigilant and wanting to get rid of this guy, And it was, you should see, it was amazing. It was I would say it was about 10 other people of color that were there. They tried to rally around him, to say, hey, listen, we understand, don't feel bad, we want you to stay here. The other people wanted him gone. It isn't amazing. He said something that should have offended the black people, but the people of color were trying to keep him, and all the white folks wanted his ass kicked out, And later, I guess they did something that some people didn't approve of. Later, after lunch, I guess they found this guy was doing some trolling on the internet before he came there too. So he had a little bit of a background, but they made a vote and they kicked him out during lunch. We come back and they made this announcement that they kicked this guy out based on what he had said, and immediately everyone that was black in the room left out of protest, except for me. It was my space. I couldn't leave, And there was one other trainer that was black. He was there. Oh no, there's three of us, three people that were left. So then we had to. Now I'm like, oh wow. So now we're cutting into more time. So now we have to talk about what just happened, and now we're gonna talk about why you all made this decision and didn't tell everybody. They're like, well, if we told everybody, there'd be a hoopla about it. You know, I said, well, now look. You know, now all black people are gone. You know, and they were the ones that should have been mad. You know, and how come the people that are angry are, you know, how come you all, it wasn't directed toward you, you know? Which leads me to those people don't have a lot of understanding of how people can get like the guy, I'll call him the chemist. He's a retired chemist, you know, and he broke the ice earlier by stating that, you know, when we're doing introductions, he says, well, you know, I'm a retired chemist, and I want to know when you all decide to move away from all this non-violent stuff, I can teach you how to blow something up. You know, I'm like, oh no. And then there's a couple people in the back like, yeah! You know, I'm thinking, oh man, the place is bugged, you know, I mean, they're hitting it. And there's people we caught trying to secretly record things, and I'm like, yeah, that's great for what he just said, you know. But a lot of people live in their group, their environment. You know, some people live, let's say, a white suburban area, and they have no interaction with a lot of people from outside of other cultures, races, or religions. And one good example of that I would say, if you asked anybody, was it really racist in 1963? You probably won't find anybody that's going to say, oh no, things were great back then, there was no racism, right? Everybody's going to say, man, it was bad in 1963. You know, but Gallup did a poll in 1963 asking white people was there bad racial disparity between, you know, blacks and whites. And 77% of the white folks said nothing was wrong. You know, and a lot of people wonder how that happened. How can these people live? You know, you got Martin Luther King marching in the street, water hoses getting put on people, and these people are like, I don't get it. What's wrong? You know? Because they live in an area ostracized from a lot of those other groups and those cultures. So these are like, a lot of these are good, honest people, but if their worldview is they have a job, there's no violence, things are going great for them where they live at, then they come to think that this is the actual reality for everybody. And for people who don't live, if you try to challenge them and say, no, things are actually kind of bad, they're resistant. They're like, no, it's not. No, the way things are for me, this is like that for everybody. We're fine. So what are you marching in the street for and saying you want rights? No, things should be great for everybody, you know. And people become intolerant. They start to resist you trying to suggest that things are actually different, you know. And it leads me to the next thing. Why do people like to do that? Everybody is a member of some type of majority group or some type of privileged group. Everybody is. A lot of people may not realize it. Like me, I did not count how many stairs I walked up to get here. I didn't count how many elevators. I didn't count how many had wheelchair access. I did not look into that, you know, because I'm privileged as an able-bodied person. And because of my privilege, I am not required to have to know what it takes for somebody who's handicapped to get to any of that stuff. You know, there's no test, there's nothing in school, no test I'm going to be given to require me to have to know how it feels to be that person. And until I have a friend who is in a wheelchair. Now I'm inviting the same friend to things that we've always been inviting them to, and now we're like, wait a minute, can she get in? Can her wheelchair get in this place? Now we have to start thinking about how do we arrange things and invite, and we don't want to always invite her places that she might not be able to get in and run into a problem, you know, but we never had to know that. And when you think of your privilege, you know, think of your privilege as of your sex, think of your privilege of your race, you know, and think that you have no requirement of your privilege to really have to know what it's like for those other people. And being that you're not required to, a lot of us don't venture to want to know these things. And not investigating this because there's really no requirement for it, we end up getting in settings where there's other people of other cultures, races, or religions. And because we never try to put forth any effort to learn about those particular groups, there's things that we may be used to saying, which was safe to say in our ostracized group or area. which may not be safe to say once you get around other groups and other people. And what we want people to understand is, understand that, that everybody here, I believe, is here probably for the same thing. There's no bad or evil person here that probably holds like that hates a particular race or religion or something like that. And if there is, please don't prove me wrong. Don't pull me aside later and say, hey, you know what, you're wrong. That guy actually is from the Aryan nation or something like that. Don't tell me. I want to go on being naive and believing that everybody here is for the same thing. All right. So that if someone accidentally says something that offends you or someone from their particular group, just take it that they're ignorant based on their background and help educate them. We don't want to go off, snapping on people and trying to get people kicked out. One of the codes that we like to use is like if you're overhearing someone, like I was somewhere and this one guy said, hey, that's retarded. And there was a guy who had a mentally handicapped. He's like, ouch. The term was like, ouch. You say ouch. I mean, okay, you just said something that offends me. I don't care if you've been saying it all your life. Now you're in a setting where you cannot say that. So when someone says ouch, explain to them why it is or what it is that they said or they did that has offended you, so that we can all learn how to get along better. And we're also trying to help educate people of those minority groups, so that they can get along better when they go in other places of society. You told me that, right?
Yeah, sure. I gotta read when Ahern and I were getting together and talking about this. He had this great quote. I was like, Ahern, what is cultural competence? And he said, being able to communicate with people of different cultures without pissing people off. I love it, man. You're my like A+ meat so far. I'm happy to be in a relationship with you, man. So what are some advantages to developing cultural competence?
Expand your reach.
Expand your reach. Learning. Yes.
Gain and align assets.
Can we say that again a little louder?
Gain and align assets.
Gain and align assets. Ooh, that's heady stuff, man. I like it.
Learning to see the world in different ways.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Discovery.
Discover? Discovery. I think that's, yes, sir.
I think for me it expands compassion, which the whole movement depends on compassion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it expands yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you become a better person. In
A
the
better
long run.
person. Yeah. Live a richer life.
Yeah.
Jazz music is good. Fela Kuti is good, right? Throat singing is good. Like getting turned on to all of these things, like the cultural elements of the broader world around us. These all enrich our lives in so many ways. Yes?
If you meet Iranians, you're going to find out many of us are not terrorists.
And how would we know that?
By knowing me.
That's right. That's exactly right. Right? By relationship.
Yes.
Right? How many folks were here yesterday for honest conversations? Session I did yesterday. Okay. I'm going to have to do a recap because that's good stuff. But from my perspective, I grew up in the country in what is known as the Near South to people who live there. A real live hillbilly, redneck, coal country, reject, setting shit on fire and driving big trucks. I was extraordinarily conservative when I was a young person, and it was through relationships that I changed. Right, through relationships. I was lucky enough to be able to go to school and became very good friends with a fellow by the name of William Hartwell, who was from D.C., young guy from Adams, Morgan, who would spend summers and holidays with my family. And he's now one of the admissions assistant dean of admissions for Howard University. And his folks had been his mother had been Black Panther. His dad had died in jail, and he grew up with his grandmother. His life experience could not have been any different from mine, growing up on a hog farm, right? I mean, could not have been any different. And as we sat and talked, and I said stupid shit, then he was very kind to me, right? And this is not to place the onus on, you know, I don't place the onus on oppressed groups to educate, you know, the majority about their situation, right? That's not the reality of life. We're entering into this relationship as good faith partners, which means, you know, in the spirit of Dr. King's beloved community, we give each other the freedom to fail, right? And the trust that we're all engaging in this for a similar reason. And that means that rather than react out of anger, right, when someone says something that is impolitic or offensive, right, react out of love. You know, I want to ask the person, why do you think that? You know, do you believe that's true, right? Engage them in a conversation about your life experience and why that's not true for you. Because as Ahern pointed out, right, we all get, you know, the market puts us in boxes because it makes it easy to market to us, right? There's a lot of interest from the 1% in keeping us divided, especially working folk. You know, they want these low-end pressures. They want white folks, you know, banging up against undocumented workers. They want undocumented workers banging up against First Nations peoples. They want, you know, they want these things because they keep everyone distracted from the real issue, right? The real oppressor in our midst. Bain Capital and Goldman Sachs. And that's right. And yes.
My question is, what do you do when people don't react? Because this is a problem we had very recently in Occupy Chicago. And one of our committees, a couple of people said some stuff that, you know, you'd really hope people would be like, wait a second. We actually wound up having a meeting where misogyny was on the damn, like, on the agenda. Like, point 1, Twitter. Point 2, misogyny. We had to have this conversation because only 3 people out of 15 were like, wait, you can't say that. So what do you do when otherwise seemingly reasonable people who you think are all on the same page look at something and they don't understand that, no, that's gender biased, or no, that's racist, you can't do that. Like, how do you affect that culture within your group's culture? Patience. Screw patience. I ain't having that.
I noticed that, especially with Occupy, because I know who I'm in Occupy Chicago, it was really tough. Cause they attracted a very wide range of people. Very, very broad. I mean, to the point where you try to have an anti-capitalist meeting and you find out the majority of the people in the anti-capitalist meeting were capitalists. You know? So now we're trying to meet to plan this action, you know, focusing on anti-capitalism, and the whole meeting was a debate on capitalism. Right. You know, that's the number one enemy of progress, is that debating an issue that should be decided already. You know, I know. Well, I know when with Occupy, I know it was pretty tough. You know, we were trying to find ways to explain to people that if they're being misogynistic, you know, or like we had someone that said one time, I couldn't believe what this guy had said. We were talking about, you know, illegal immigration. This guy was a computer tech guy, and he says, "Oh man, you know what, man? All those people coming over here, they're taking all our jobs." And I was like, I can't believe I heard this guy say that. So I had to. So usually what you have to explain with people like that is, you know, I pull them aside. I want to ask them, like, you know, are you aware that what you're saying is something that offends a large portion of our group or organization? Are you aware of that? And if you're not aware, okay, well, I'm here to help make you aware, just so I can try to explain to you, you know, what you're doing is offending a lot of people, you know, and you continue to engage in that, you're going to create a wedge where a lot of people seem to not want to discuss, you know, or they go to the Google group instead. You know, instead of discussing something face to face, they go right to Google group. You know, and then that's where the fight ends up being in Google group, and then nobody actually, you know, addresses it. But I know one-on-one conversation with the person should do something, and then if that person still is insisting on keeping up that type of behavior, then I'll put together a group discussion, like you said, on misogyny, and make it an invite to everybody to have this discussion, and don't put that person on the spot like that, but of course you want to have the general education so that person can see that his worldview of things is not the way everybody else sees everything. So that gives him the opportunity to probably feel, if he is set on being that way, he'll slowly look around, and all of a sudden that person won't be around anymore, hopefully, instead of trying to just stay.
So we've got, I want to say, we've got a couple folks on stack here, and I want to say too, can we just have everybody, okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. I want to say, a lot of times we allow our institutions to become bureaucratic, outhouses where we spend all of our time, and all of our energy meeting about agendas and doing things, and we very rarely invest the time in getting to know one another, right? So you can go years, right? You can go a whole Occupy, dutifully, seeing people once a day at GA and never get to know them. And that is, and part of getting past this idea that my worldview is right, or that natural inclination, I think that my worldview is the worldview, is developing those relationships, right? And as organizations, investing the time to be sure that we're doing that. Okay, so I'm going to go here, and then we're going to go back corner, and then we're going to go over here.
So, okay. As a teacher, I believe that sometimes you have to tell 10 times something to somebody before they hear it. And you have to say it in different ways. So I really am for planting seeds and not being attached to outcome of that. I'm going to give you a little story about my mom. Is 80 years old, and for a year I've been telling her about recycling, how good it is for environment, how it's good, Nothing worked. But I planted the seeds. I told her, what she's going to accomplish. And after a year, like last week, she called me. She said, "How do I do that? I get a bag, and what do? I just put the papers in there?" I felt like, yes, the planting seeds worked, and I was not attached. I thought she's going to die, not ever know how to recycle. So I feel like with those people that you have problems, you're not going to change over time. So don't get frustrated. You just have to keep on planting seeds, telling them different way, and go about it with compassion. And hopefully they change.
Bruce?
Yeah, I just want to say that it's like sometimes you go in, what's the point of what's the purpose of the meeting? It's like we got to keep that in mind. Obviously we got to work on like anti-oppression work throughout like involvements with lots of different groups. But sometimes you're having a meeting, and it's like we want to maintain focus on the meeting. And I feel like we have to, if we're in a situation, I've had, somebody says something bad at a meeting, and then the whole meeting, which was about something totally different, is all of a sudden just talking about this oppression, which is great. It's useful, but it's also like, well, when are we going to do the work? So one of the things that I'd like to see more of is just like, let's bring it up, and then let's let it go, and then let's organize meetings where we that are just on that topic, because to me that allows the work to go forward, and people don't change with one conversation, like you were saying, it could take a lifetime. But we have to remember there's if they're in the room, we want them to stay in the room, because that gives us access to them, and we can't scare away people, because the majority of people in the United States aren't as trained. They haven't gone. We're not taught this stuff in school. We're not taught this stuff. We're taught this stuff through peer-to-peer education, and if they're not in the room with you, then there's no chance to educate them.
Yes, we're just going to go around this way, if that's okay with folks.
So this kind of speaks to that comment, and also to your patience comment, which I think I feel a lot too, and also ties in with expecting oppressed people to do the work of educating other people about their own oppression. I think something that I like to do is find allies early on who are not necessarily experiencing the same form of oppression that I am. And as much as I hate to have a group that already has a respected voice continue to be the voice of authority, sometimes when I just run out of patience of dealing with that sort of shit, I go to my ally who might be more respected with that person who's bugging me or acting in an oppressive way. And it's on the one hand, it is really frustrating for me because I'm like, damn it, they're only listening to that guy 'cause he's a guy, but he's my ally, and I don't want to deal with this shit right now. So.
I want to piggyback on that. Yeah. Y'all familiar with the guy Tim Wise? Tim Wise, he's really a brilliant anti-racist educator. So he's a white guy. And he points out that he's been in 400 universities, and why do you think I've been in 400 universities when these people of color been saying the same thing I'm saying? Because the white guy, people are more accepting sometimes to hear that story from the actual white person. And I think sometimes people look at us, if we're part of a minority group, that's a conflict of interest. Like if we're complaining about something, maybe, so a lot of people look at the person from the majority group and figure, well, if that person sees it, I know it's kind of offensive like that, but sometimes I just suck it up and just try to use their privilege, which is what we want people to do. Use your privilege to help the underprivileged for the same fight.
I want to share that when I was part of Occupy Freedom Plaza, we had similar circumstance. I think a lot of the comments are really worthwhile when you're not in the midst of a GA, which I think that's what you're really expressing. Or that's what I heard from you. That we had this tension between wanting to stay on agenda and also not wanting people around the circle to think that that was acceptable by the group. So I feel that tension because I do like to accomplish the agenda, but I also don't want people to think this is who we're about. We actually, we never really sort of came up with a beautiful solution for this, but we did come up with a different hand signal for a timeout. But I think in some ways, I feel like it needs to be acknowledged that this is something that you can take everyone's wonderful comments about taking someone aside and spending time with them or having ongoing relationship. But when you are in the midst of the agenda, I feel like I would love to hear what people have to say about how do you craft something that is respectful to the group as well as to the individual.
I want to do a quick time check. We're at
10:23.
10:23. Next session begins
10:30.
10:30. I would, if it were up to me, I think we're just getting into something rich myself. But I also want to be mindful of the work other folks have done to put together their sessions. So, I'm feeling like, and I want to check in with you, Ahern. Is there a place where we can continue this? Because it feels rich to me. It feels like we're actually kind of just getting into it.
Because my understanding is we might be doing some canvassing, and that will be in a neighborhood that's not, it's not my neighborhood. So I want to make sure that my canvassing is going to be the most effective because I've had some kind of this training that we're talking about right now.
Oh, okay.
And so I want to make sure that I really do get that in. And it also seems like kind of some of our comments, they fall to almost the facilitator or the mediator who's running the GA to, one, stay on task, but two, acknowledge the feelings of the room and make sure they say, hey, we're going to address this after this meeting, 4 or 5 of us, we're all going to do this in a loving, kind, compassionate way with each other. Because I think GAs often get held up by people who actually want to start a conflict to get us to dismiss and get pissed off with each other. So I think some of this falls to the facilitator and the mediator who's running the journey. But I think we are going to be canvassing and do training.
So maybe, what about lunch? Being that we started so late, maybe 7 minutes over wouldn't be bad?
No,
great lunchtime
7 minutes
discussion.
over wouldn't be bad. I just want to say lunch, we got 45 minutes, everybody's around the table. That's just, that's another good time. We could. That's just right after the Bills training.
Usually we'll feel a little bit better when we're like eating together, right?
If Ahern's open to it, I'd be interested in pulling my lunch over here and reconvening the circle and having,
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, then we could just continue it into like a 2-hour session, the lunch.
Lunch.
There you
2-hour
go, right.
lunch, man. I feel like I'm working up for private equity.
Because I want to get into when the suggestion I gave you, Kelly, doesn't work. Because I was in a situation where I did exactly what I tried to tell you, and it kind of didn't the person. So we'll get into that later.
So I want to make sure I didn't leave anyone out. Did you have something? Okay. Yes, sir.
It can wait till the lunch.
4 folks. Gedden?
I just wanted to say something really quick when we talk about being respectful of where people are coming from, and the word oppression has been thrown out a few times. Just that when we phrase these conversations, that we're not completely anthropocentric in our conversations, because when we talk about oppressive dynamics, we really think about how we interact with the planet, the animals, and all other sort of elements too. So this is not just a completely human-based issue or interpersonal dynamics. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I just have a question. Are there any police here?
Good question.
Raise your hand.
Top haters.
Just a couple more questions. Are there any politicians here?
There might be a couple of those I've seen.
I just pulled these out of the conversation. Are there anybody here from the 1%?
Used to be.
2%?
That person, right?
1%. Should we count?
Okay. Is anybody one more that I pulled out? Is anybody here a banker?
Bankster.
Okay, that's all. I'm done.
I just have a really quick question that can be tabled for later. Knowing the neighborhood that we're going to be canvassing in, since it got brought up, we actually, the vast majority of the ethnicities represented in that neighborhood are completely unrepresented here. And I've been really concerned about that. I live close to there, and I don't represent my neighborhood. And so hopefully before Tuesday we can take some time to think about how we can be really sensitive without having anyone here to help educate us, unfortunately, about the way that their specific culture works. So,
What kind of?
it's highly Asian. A lot of, but it's a very mixed Asian, which is really interesting because, it'll be Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese. But I'm really worried about it because it's like if we send teams of canvassers up to their doors, they're going to be really intimidated. Oftentimes, whoever we're going to find at home oftentimes won't speak English. I mean, I don't know what the list looks like, so maybe it's not. But I just know that neighborhood that's
Beacon Hill? Did you say Beacon Hill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's talk more about that. Let's talk more about that.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna take 2 more, and then we should probably wrap it.
Is it lunchtime?
No, it's Bills at 10:30 down at the big tent.
All right.
Don't scare the
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure to put out there in response to some things that were said about staying on topic at meeting and not letting people derail the actual focus. When somebody, and I guess it depends on the severity of what's being done. As Ahern was saying, sometimes somebody just has a little slip and they don't know any better, and if you take a second to be like, hey, ouch, dude, that's a problem what you did there, they might just think about it and be like, oh, you're right, I'm sorry, that was asinine. If somebody really comes after somebody in a way that's inappropriate, like what happened to me last week. This guy's like calling me, you're hostile, you have a problematic attitude. 2 people immediately pointed out, you would not have said that to her if I said the exact same thing. He's like, you would not have a problem with any of the men in this circle if they talked that way to you. It's like, she knows more about this than you do, and she speaks in an authoritative manner. So you're sitting here making her out to be a bitch. And, it was great to have those 2 people say, you know what, you can't do that. About 7 people in that circle who I have worked with day after day, who I feel like, I know these people, they're my friends, I got their back. They just sat there. Like, I think they just wanted to get through the meeting. In my mind, that's a huge mistake. Because if you want me to sit through that meeting, you act like you have some solidarity. You know, you cannot expect the people who are getting the shaft to say, "Oh, right, let's stay on topic." Like,
Right.
you can bash my ethnicity. You can come after me in a gender-biased way, because it's the work that's important.
Yeah,
So it's all of us that are important.
You know, let me piggyback on that real quick. As far as like sexism, gender bias, orientation bias, racism, it can only thrive if the people that engage in that get good practice at it. And if you don't have an environment to practice it at, you don't get good at it. Right? Meaning that so basically what she's saying, like when someone decides to act a certain way, or people just let it go, you're letting this person, engage in this behavior and letting them get good at engaging in this behavior. And when you say ouch, right away, you stop them, and then at that point we can kind of evaluate whether or not that person is intentional or just being ignorant.
Okay, sorry. Yeah,
Speaking of ouch, is Kim Marks a man or a woman?
Woman.
Okay.
Very awesome woman.
Where is she, and why do most of the people that have been given speaking, educating, workshop leading roles, why are they, the vast majority of them, men?
Kim was supposed. We adjusted things because she's late. Is she still coming?
Yeah, she's still coming.
Yeah, and we tried to stall, and then we sat together, put some of like our thoughts together, like his experience and mine, and how to do this. It was in the mind of Kim filling in a certain slot, and then when
she's
Kim,
filling in a whole lot of slots here.
so she's still going to be
coming
here.
up from Portland. She's on her way.
Yeah, she's just missed this one.
Yeah.
Right. And it was last minute.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. That is a good point. Right. Yeah.
I get her point because I wondered.
Point
the same
taken.
thing when
Good
I saw
point
it,
though.
too.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I gotta do it now.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but we get so PC with each other, nothing gets done. Perfect example, I was talking to a political figurehead the other day, and I said, my business and its social media could really help you. And we started talking about this. Next thing I know, I got these questions about PC, this and that, and the conversation just walked away, and I went, wait a minute, I'm trying to help you. So I guess what I want to say is, I don't care if you got X gene, Y gene, what color. Do we gotta let yesterday continue stealing from tomorrow and talk about all these differences, or can't we just get on to where we're alike?
Well, the reason why we can't let that go is because it hasn't stopped.
Because in some ways, I think because we talk about it so much, it won't stop. Let's just get into how we're alike, how we can work together and move forward.
I have a question. Can you name any atrocity or abomination that has ever been defeated by ignoring it?
No, I'm not talking about an atrocity. I'm talking about.
Well, no, racism and sexism is terrible.
It is.
Right.
What I was saying is, I think at times we spend so much energy talking about this problem that we pick on each other over it. You know what I mean? It becomes a competition in a sense, and it's like, I just want to see that competition go away. I love all of you. I don't care where you're from. What I want to learn about you. I want to learn from you. I want to be able to work with you. And I really don't want to spend so much time, and I do get accused.
Not excessive time, you mean?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you agree that we should spend some time to address and discuss it, but you
And
don't
get
want that
over
to
it, and
you
get
don't want that
beyond
to
it.
just dominate like an entire week, to where no other work gets done against.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I want
right.
to learn about
Okay.
people's good attributes and how I can work with other people. And
I'm gonna call time here really quickly, if I may, and I want to ask. I want to honor your comment, right? But this was not designed
Right.
to be,
we were
male centric. Yeah. It specifically was not designed. And if Kim were here, she would be doing the whole thing, and Ahern and I'd be sitting off on the side going, "Oh yeah, all right, she's dynamite."
Yeah.
And I want to ask Gedden, honoring your comment, is there last year at camp we had a deep ecology gathering? Is anybody planning on pulling folks together for a deep ecology caucus again?
I don't think so, but I mean, I think.
Maybe, would you or Tim be open to?
Yeah, I'm sure we could talk about biocentrism, ecocentrism, deep ecology as well.
Okay.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very valuable point. Okay, I want to thank Ahern. This is tough stuff. It's tough stuff, right? And we operate with love, right? We operate with love, and not out of a place of fear. And that's what makes us strong and why we will win, right? Because we are operating love and not out of a place of fear. And I want to invite folks who are interested in continuing the conversation back to circle up here at lunch. And yeah, and it'll be informal and open. The next session is going to be at the Big Tent.
Yes, Big Tent with Bill Moore, Grand Strategy, Creative Tactics.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.